In this video, I'm going to show you how to get cinematic audio in DaVinci Resolve. Now I'm using the free edition here, and I've actually already selected to go into Fairlight, and I recorded a voiceover that sounds like this. In a world where cinematic audio... Okay, not sounding too bad, but there are a bunch of different things we can do to make this audio as cinematic as possible. And to start with, we'll go into the EQ here, and we'll make sure to put on band 1 and crank it all the way up to 399. Have a listen. In a world where cinematic audio... Okay, that's definitely thinned out the voice, so I'm going to pull it down a bit, and maybe we'll stick for a happy medium. I usually find around 250 is a good frequency. In a world where cinematic audio... Now let's listen to before. In a world where cinematic audio is easy to achieve. And then we still want to retain a little bit of the bass, so I'm actually going to go ahead and grab 0.2 and just drag this up around the 250 mark so we get a nice bass boost. In a world where cinematic audio... Now we'll make it a bit crisper by increasing 0.5 to give that clarity at the high end. In a world where cinematic audio is easy to achieve. There we go, sounding good already. Now, if you haven't done so, change the order of your effects from FX, Dynamics, and EQ to FX, EQ, and Dynamics, meaning that we add the EQ first, and then this Dynamics effect that I'm now going to add gets added finally. So let's go ahead and switch on the compressor and the limiter here, and we'll just listen on these default settings. In a world where cinematic audio is easy to achieve. Okay, I'm going to pull the threshold up a bit on the limiter. In a world where cinematic audio... Now I'm going to increase the ratio to about 5:1 there. Let's have a listen. In a world where cinematic audio is easy to achieve. Not too bad. Let's increase the makeup gain now a bit. In a world where cinematic audio is easy to achieve. Okay, so let's listen to what we started from and what we've gone to. First of all, switching the effects off, we'll have a listen. In a world where cinematic audio is easy to achieve. And as I was playing back, I switched those effects back on, and you can definitely hear the difference it makes just by adding a little bit of EQ and dynamics to make that voiceover really pop out. But there are two more things I'm going to do to really make this pop out and sound cinematic as it is possible to do so. So first of all, I will go to the effects. You'll notice I've got a multi-band compressor here. Impact and balance is a great preset, and we can go ahead and decrease the threshold on all of these different effects here so we get it really harsh. In a world where cinematic audio is easy to achieve. That sounds pretty good. I can switch off the compressor so you can hear the difference. In a world where cinematic audio is easy to achieve. Now, if we want to work harder on the lower frequencies, we can actually go ahead and pump out some of those low frequencies that we work on. In a world where cinematic audio... And I can go ahead and maybe compress the low end a bit more. In a world where cinematic audio... Maybe a little bit too much, dial that down. In a world where cinematic audio is easy to achieve. And we've got something that's already sounding good now using dynamics, EQ, and multi-band compression. But the final thing I'm going to show you for this tutorial to really make those voiceovers pop is go back into effects, and we want to select reverb here and go for the Fairlight Effects reverb. Now, there are lots of presets here. I find vocal width is a good starting point. In a world where cinematic audio... Obviously, that's totally ruining our sound, so let's increase the size of this box. We'll also increase the reverb time so it goes on for a long time. We'll decrease the early reflections and decrease the reverb quite significantly, but keep the direct starting sound quite high. In a world where cinematic audio is easy to achieve in DaVinci Resolve. And there you hear you've got a nice little bit of whispery reverb that really finalizes that cinematic sound. So to recap, what we did was we added EQ, rolled off the low end, enhanced the high end, then we went into dynamics and compressed that voiceover quite a bit. Finally, we went to multi-band compression to really dial in that pumping sound on some of the low end and high end frequencies. And then, of course, just for the gloss, the reverb effect there with a big boxy room and a long decay time on the reverb, but lowering the early reflections and the reverb volume itself really finalizes that cinematic sound. I hope this has been really handy to you, and if you want to go and download some done-for-you presets, I have audio presets for DaVinci Resolve available in the link down below.